And so I've become a really strong web accessibility advocate, and trying to encourage people to understand that it's not just a social responsibility. It's not just a charitable action. It's not just, whatever the excuses are around this sort of thing. It makes good design is good for everybody. So as soon as you make something that works for a vast group, then everybody likes it better.
Yeah.
So
and this is part of your calling to really change how the internet experience is. And when you talk about web accessibility, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah. So it's the common approach to web design is to make it look pretty, and use the right colors and sort of match your brand palette and stuff. But there's web accessibility means that it can work for anyone on any type of device, and it doesn't matter. So there's like a point of access points. So they could be on really crummy rural internet, which we get a lot of here in Nova Scotia. They could be on an older device. They could be outside of the bus, or on a subway or whatever, and they can't really see the screen. Or they might have a difference, like diverse abilities. They might have a temporary disability, like maybe they have a cast on their arm and they can't use their mouse. Or they might have a permanent disability. For the disability piece of that accessibility, for web accessibility.
Hello, my extraordinary women friends. Up next on the Extraordinary Women Radio Ignite Speaker Series is the brilliant Steph Sedgwick. The 10th annual Extraordinary Women Ignite Conference is being held October 24th through 26th in Golden, Colorado, and you want to be in the room. Steph is the founder of Clarity Web Design Studio, a web design and management agency based in Nova Scotia. As a digital strategist and web accessibility advocate, Steph is dedicated to resetting the industry standard for findable and functional websites. She believes the internet needs an overhaul and that female founders will lead the shift toward a better online user experience. Clarity Web Design Studio has revolutionized the way businesses create impactful websites. Steph's work enhances online presence, attracts more customers, and drives business growth, all while prioritizing accessibility. Her unique perspective and holistic approach to digital marketing and online branding rooted in a deep commitment to customer-centered design and inclusivity. In today's episode, we will dive into Steph's story and her journey in the web design industry. We'll discuss what makes a great website and will attract more clients into your business and the changes in the website industry over the past few years. We'll also talk about common ways websites unintentionally become exclusionary and share examples of businesses that have successfully bridged the gap between their values and their online presence. At the Ignite conference, Steph will be sharing her expertise on how to evaluate and improve the inclusivity and accessibility of your website to better serve a diverse range of visitors. With search engines and AI increasingly rewarding genuine, authentic content, it is crucial for small businesses to move away from merely chasing rankings and refocus on the most important aspect of their business, their customers. So let's get ready to be inspired and learn how to create websites that truly make an impact. Remember, Ignite is all about raising up your vision, your voice, and your visibility while building a business with more time prosperity and wealth prosperity. You will lead with a plan for 2025 to make your next uplevel happen. Early bird tickets are on sale now at cammygellner.com/ignite. Hope to see you there. Now let's meet Steph Sedgwick.
Well, welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio. Steph, it's so great to have you here today.
Thank you, Cammy. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you joining us at Ignite as well this October.
Yes.
And you're going to be one of our speakers at Ignite. So we've been running all this month. We're running all of the speakers we're having a speaker series for Ignite here on Extraordinary Women Radio. And so it's going to be awesome to have you there here in Colorado.
I'm so looking forward to it. And it's like the perfect opportunity for me to come back to Colorado because I haven't been there in about 30 years, probably.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And tell us where you're at. I know where you're at, but tell us where you're at.
Yeah. So I'm based in Windsor in Nova Scotia. So it's like right in the heart of a very small province, quite far removed from Colorado.
Yeah. So you'll get a chance to come down here and be in my community. I have such a wonderful, amazing community. And so you're gonna really love all the wonderful women that will be there that
Oh,
week. So
I already know, Cami. I already know if they're in your sphere, it's going to be great. Yeah.
Well, they're going to love all that you're going to be teaching us at Ignite. So I'm super excited about that. And we'll dive into more what you'll be talking about at Ignite. But right now, I'd love to hear a bit of your story. Tell us how you have come to be doing the work that you're doing in the world of websites and all the work that you're doing out in the world right now.
For sure. So I've been doing websites for quite a while. I was one of those. I went to university. I had my fine arts degree, got married, started having babies, and wasn't doing anything artistic or creative really outside of baby raising. And so I started helping my husband with his business. I told him I would help him. I gave him 5 years. I said, I'll help you with this business for 5 years. So as part of that, he needed a website. And I thought, oh, I'm smart. I'm artistic. I'm creative. I can handle this. And I created a couple websites for his business and learned a lot during that process. And, a lot of people congratulated me on these really nice websites. I was like, oh, I'm great. And so I started doing websites for other people. I live in a small community. There's lots of charities, lots of volunteering and stuff. And it's one of those things where as soon as people find out you can do something, they ask you to do it. And that was fun. And so I was doing that for several years. And it was really only after I decided to make it an official business in 2015 that I started to get these little hints that web design is actually more than just that visual graphic design kind of layer. Like that's actually
so often
just
people
the icing.
think that, right?
Yeah, and a lot of us, especially the women that I've met in the industry that call themselves web designers, come at it from this visual sort of creative graphic design kind of a journey. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's only one element of a very big, technological structure, this foundation. Yeah. And so it was really interesting as I started learning all of the stuff that I was missing and realizing more and more that function and fashion they need to be able to balance, together. Yeah. Yeah. And it was in 2019, my big aha was when I attended a webinar that was hosted by a blind web designer from England. And I just mind blown because up until that point, I didn't really get that people could have such vastly different experiences online. I sort of, even though at the time mobile responsive and mobile friendly was was becoming normal. And so designing for websites to be mobile friendly so they could work on any device. I understood all of that. I sort of got that, was doing a lot of that sort of thing. But as soon as you remove that visual element completely, it changed everything. And from there, it became, learning about how the search engines interpret the websites and the user experience. And then as the search engines are promoting more and more towards user experience in the last few years, it's just all sort of ties together beautifully. And so I've become a really strong web accessibility advocate and trying to encourage people to understand that it's not just a social responsibility. It's not just a charitable action. It's not just, whatever the excuses are around this sort of thing. It makes good design is good for everybody. So as soon as you make something that works for a vast group, then everybody likes it better.
Yeah. So this is part of your calling to really change how the internet experience is. And when you talk about web accessibility, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah. So it's the common approach to web design is to make it look pretty, and use the right colors and sort of match your brand palette and stuff. But there's web accessibility means that it can work for anyone on any type of device, and it doesn't matter. So there's like a point of access points. So they could be on really crummy rural internet, which we get a lot of here in Nova Scotia. They could be on an older device. They could be outside of the bus, or on a subway or whatever, and they can't really see the screen. Or they might have a difference, like diverse abilities. They might have a temporary disability, like maybe they have a cast on their arm and they can't use their mouse. Or they might have a permanent disability. And for the disability piece of that accessibility, for web accessibility, I think what often happens is, unless you have a lived experience, either a firsthand experience like yourself, or you have a family or loved one that has a disability,
Mm-hmm.
you never really think about what that
Right.
experience might be like.
Right.
So when you start factoring in people with diverse abilities with the website design, it makes for there's this different standards that you need to sort of follow. There's an international standard for web accessibility, and it addresses physical, physical, mental, cognitive, all of those sorts of elements, and it all comes together to make a much better experience.
Interesting. That's really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So when you look across all the websites that you get to see them, lots of websites. What are some of the things that really are standing out for you that's working for the world of websites right now?
That's working.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's starting to become so. The industry standard is changing, I think, over the last 10 years for sure. We're starting to see a lot more push towards diversity. So there's a lot less emphasis on the same stock images, that we used to see. Like, you could recognize, some of us can recognize
totally. Oh gosh.
stock image library. So that's kind of nice to see. So a little bit more focus on diversity. Excuse me.
We've got a long ways to go on that. It's like, one of my clients works in the world of ageism, and that's an area where that one is, it's all across the board. We can look across, we can see opportunities for improvement on that. But it's great that you're starting to see better representation.
Yeah, starting to see, it's funny actually, because I think the available libraries that are out there are still not great. But there are some that are starting to devote space and resource to diverse bodies, that can be represented. And that's fantastic. I do find that there isn't always a fit with the business owner, with their idea of what the website should portray. So there's still a bit of a mismatch there with that diversity piece, but that's, we're working on it. And websites are typically, because mobile first website design has been around for over 10 years now. So that's become a lot more sort of normal. And I think people are starting to recognize that if they're not making their user happy, might be a strong word, but if they're not meeting certain expectations for their user, then their website isn't really worth having.
Okay. Yeah. And how are people starting to attract more clients, of their ideal clients, to them through their websites?
Yeah, I think that's probably something that you could speak to as well, as far as like learning to really match up your vision and your voice, and speaking that really authentic sort of message, the genuine, using your genuine voice, online, rather than trying to follow. What we used to see was a lot of, we still see it, but a lot of sketchy SEO strategies, like keyword stuffing, and like trying to use specific phrases or words that somebody said, would get you to number one on Google or whatever. Yeah. And so we're really excited to see people that are embracing more that, this is who I am, this is who my business is, this is what we do. And if I just speak that truth and don't worry about all of that, I'm not writing for Google, I'm not writing for, whatever.
It's like more authentic, right? Versus trying to put all these words in that I never really bought into fully. And that's I may not hit all the best SEO side of things, but I've never really bought into like the stuff and just like, let me be me. So I really like that.
There does, I mean, with a caveat, there does still need to be that consideration of what are your people looking for.
Exactly.
So, but that whole idea of like trying to hit, like for me as a web designer, I would never bother. I'm a small business. I have a really small team. I'm not going to look for hitting number one on anything for best web design, because that's like really like everybody's going for that. And that's my clients are not looking for that. We're looking for accessibility. We're looking for more specific, more niche stuff. So as a niche service provider, it's a lot easier for me to talk to other niche service providers and say, your SEO can be built around a much more direct message, and don't worry about that little hamster wheel of constantly trying to hit like little short tail key phrases.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
Love
but
that.
it does that. The SEO piece, that's a long game. It's
Yeah.
not an overnight. There's no overnight
Yeah.
success.
So one of the things I know, Steph, is that you believe that women entrepreneurs are going to really spearhead this shift towards a better internet. So tell
Yep.
us what that means. And that excites me. And it really is so in alignment with, I believe that women are changing the way businesses are run. So how are they going to be
Agreed.
shifting up the internet? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect time. I think the internet right now, it's full of garbage. It's a disaster. And it was when it was first invented, was it 1997 or whatever. They thought it was going to be the great equalizer. That everybody would have access to the same information, and instead we've got this. It's gross. Like it's gross. Like it's all. It's written for Google. It's written for like different sort of goals that don't necessarily match what people are actually genuinely looking for. And it's not accessible. And the majority of websites, there are all sorts of stats, around this, but the like 97% of websites that are online today, out of the top like 1 million websites globally, are not accessible. So that means only 3% are accessible friendly. So that's bonkers, because it's something that the actual numbers of people with disabilities in our immediate area, like in the US and in Canada, the numbers are about the same. It's about 1 in 4 people, adults, have at least one disability.
Yeah.
So you could put together any little small group of friends, any sort of family group, 4 people or more.
I can look at my mastermind community, and I've got somebody that has some sight challenges, right? So
absolutely. Yeah. And so female entrepreneurs are typically more empathetic. We're a lot more, tend to be more supportive of our communities than our male counterparts. We tend to be more concerned about inclusion than some of our male counterparts. And not all of them, but some of them. And I think that because the internet is in this state of disarray, let's say, and it's really exclusive in terms of like it's actively excluding, a huge chunk of our population. I think it's the women founders who already know that they want to speak authentically create a genuine relationship with their clients and their customers. And they want to make sure, because they don't want that guilt of, when they realize that they're unintentionally excluding a huge number of people. They don't want that guilt on top of all of the other, mom guilt and all of the other stuff that women often carry. Yeah. And I think because the industry we're sort of poised in this, I think I said something earlier about search engines are putting more and more emphasis on a good user journey. And they're rewarding websites that provide that good user experience and make that the focus. Right. So I think this is the perfect sort of snowstorm that women founders are. We're at this position where we can start to make that active and take that active change. Yeah. And I think that's really
when you look at the user journey, what do you look for? What are some of the things that jump out for you?
It's mainly, it's around the accessibility, honestly. So it's that they can land on the website. So it's not just that they see it in the search results, but they click on it and they can get there. And then they can interact with you.
So it's very predictable and where things are on the screen, that sort of thing.
No. Well, yes. Yeah, there is some of that for sure. Like to keep like a logical, like if you have a sign up button, it should be in about the same place as it is across the board. It's sort of like, when you drive a car and the horn is in the middle of the steering wheel. Right. It's not like, I don't actually know if that's a regulated thing, but most models have that. They might have buttons as well. Yeah. But the overall thing is that it's in that general area so you can find it. Yeah. And I think websites need to go that kind of way, like put things where people expect them to be, because if you make them hunt around, they're going to lose patience. Yeah. So it's that putting it where they can find it, yes, for sure, but also making sure that like when they land on your homepage, that a pop-up doesn't suddenly arrive and they can't get out of it. It becomes a trap. And that's really, really common. But, most of the marketing advice is to put in a pop-up and collect your email addresses, right? It's this sort of like marketing advice from like the 2000s, I think.
Exactly.
Really. It's very
old
prevalent
school.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And how are websites unintentionally becoming exclusionary and harmful? I mean, are there ways that you're seeing that?
I think it's not like people are setting out to create something that's going to exclude someone. This isn't like, we're not all a bunch of bad people. It's just like when I started out, I just didn't know any better. Right. So you don't know what you don't know. And that's kind of at the root of it. And most of the disability advocates that I know say a lot of the same thing. They're not out like not shaking their fingers. They're just saying, look, like we genuinely want you to be able to provide something that we can buy from you. Like literally, I can't use your online store because none of the buttons work, or like my screen reader can't interpret anything about your website. So I've lost track of your question. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's like, they're unintentionally just becoming exclusionary, and they don't know. Yes. Right. I mean, that's it.
Yeah. And so they could be, like it could be using outdated strategies, like even with that keyword stuffing and that sort of thing. So they're actually not getting served as a result on the search engine. So people just aren't going to find you. Yeah. Or they could be loaded with images and video, and they just take too long to load. So you're excluding people that don't have good Wi-Fi, if nothing else. Yeah. It could be that your visual contrast between your words and your background is too low, so they literally can't read it. Yeah. You might have your language setting not set, so a translation service doesn't know what to translate the language into.
Oh,
for someone. There's all sorts of aspects. Or it could be, might have unintended. You might have like animations, graphics that are moving automatically, video that's playing automatically, and for people with, like neurospicy conditions. You have to allow them control over what's going to start moving around, on the site. It can be very distracting or disturbing.
Okay. And then can you share some examples of some businesses that you've really been able to help out?
Yeah, like specific business names or just types?
Well, just like the stories of the businesses, right?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you. So this is another one of those things where the visual design can trip you up. But we did a website it's probably last year, for a local nurse education organization here in Nova Scotia. And it's just a very simple website, and it's, it's like maybe 4 or 5 pages. And so the whole idea was we wanted to showcase these workshops that this organization offers. So they wanted to have, the basics. So we needed to know what those are, when they are, and how to sign up. That's like the root, like this is what we really need the website to do. Yeah. And so as part of the visual piece, we added all these lovely pictures, of the specific type of nursing that she was doing. But we used this thing called a parallax effect on the image, so that as you're scrolling down the website, the image doesn't move, but the words move over top. And one of the main educators in this organization, it gave her vertigo when she was scrolling the website. And we were like, oh, I had no idea. So that wasn't even an impact to her end user, to her students who are going to sign up for her course, although it could be. But she immediately noticed that. She was like, it makes me feel sick. And I was horrified. I had no idea. Yeah. So that's, that's a very simple, it's like a one-click setting change, Yeah. But yeah.
That's cool.
It's
cool that you can change things up so quickly, and it's really getting into. So how can someone really evaluate and improve their inclusivity and accessibility of their website? To really.
So it mostly depends on what platform you use, because some of them are more easily modified than others. Okay. But generally speaking, there's a couple of do's and there's a couple of don'ts. Okay. So there are things, depending on the platform that you're on, there are tools called overlays, and they're like a thing you can add on, and it's like a portal for someone with diverse abilities, so that then they can choose the settings, that they want to view your website with. And those are marketed really well, but functionally speaking, they're not as successful. Okay. So they can provide some benefit, but you have to use them with caution, right?
Yeah.
So that would be more of a don't. But then the do would be around testing it. You know, like run it on different devices, run it in dark mode, run it in, zoom in 400%. Does it still work? We have testing tools. Your best bet, though, really is to have an evaluation done and identify what those highest impact
and you do those,
areas
right?
are. Yeah. We do it. We call them a quick audit, and it's they can work on any platform because they identify those not low hanging fruit, but the areas that have the highest impact.
Yeah.
And then it's not like a big, expensive, long drawn out process necessarily. There are often things like the visual contrast that can have a significant impact on the overall accessibility of your site. And it doesn't have to be a huge resolution.
And how can people do this audit with you?
Oh, can I give the website?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So so we have a specific website set up for it, and it's for doing a strategy session. And so it's strategysession.ca. And you can just go in and there's a little bit of information about it. And then you can book a call, and then we run you through a little process, and we provide it's accessibility and user experience, because that's at the end of the day, we want everybody to have a good experience. It's not just about removing the barriers. We want to make sure everything is as awesome as possible.
Yeah. And what's the website again?
strategysession.ca.
Perfect. That's a great URL, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So what are you going to be talking about at Ignite? I know you're going to be talking about some of this. So tell us what you'll be sharing at Ignite.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about removing those barriers. So, and why it's so important. And so it'll be around, we'll identify things like maybe some of those diverse abilities and experiences that people don't think of. Yeah. And then we'll talk about why it's just one piece of that puzzle to creating this shift, in the internet overall.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool. So where can people follow along in your work and all that you're putting out into the world?
Yeah, you can look for me anywhere with Clarity Web Design Studio. So my website is claritywebdesign.ca. And then on social, it's usually Clarity Web Design Studio.
Okay.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. And then the final question I always close with are, what are 3 pearls of wisdom you'd like to leave us with today?
Ooh. So for one, I'd like you to think about your website as a virtual front door, and that you can't just unlock the door, you can't just flip the open sign. You also have to unlock the door. So if you've ever had a job in customer service, it's really easy to miss one of those steps, and then people can't get in. So I like to think of web accessibility as that. It's that basic. You unlock the door and you say, "Look, I'm open." Those two things have to happen together. Yeah. Otherwise, it just won't work. So I don't know if that's a pearl, but that's what I would say. Another one is that there's a lot of marketing advice out there, and you can get overwhelmed and confused really, really quickly. And I would say if something sounds too good to be true, and it probably is. So if someone is marketing themselves as some kind of a Google guru or promising you the stars in the sky with your website, that may not be realistic.
Yeah.
Is that 2? Oh,
that's 2.
I think the other thing would be to just try to remember that other people have different experiences than you. So don't assume.
Yeah.
So just because your website works for you doesn't mean it works for everybody else.
Yeah. Well, this has been so good, Steph. It's really been insightful, and I've learned some interesting things here. So I can't wait to have you in Colorado.
Me too. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. October 24th through 26th. We have such an amazing lineup of speakers. If you guys are tuning in this month, you're hearing from all our amazing speakers that we're going to have. And Steph, I'm really super thrilled that you're going to be there. You can get your tickets for Ignite at Cami Gellner /Ignite. And we've got early bird tickets on sale through August 1st. So make sure you grab your tickets now. And we are looking forward to seeing you all there. Thanks so much for joining us today, Steph. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.
You bet.